Thank you very much.
Second.
Thank you so much.
Second. Let me see who was knocking.
Yeah, I think it was like two brothers knocking on.
Which one does the brother?
Put the volume up so we'll fix it up. Yeah, just go right.
Oh, it can be seen.
There we go. Alrighty. So, start it. You're good? Okay. Perfect. Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Wali Abdul Hanifzai. As you guys see, the scenario is a little different today. On my show, before you would see me in the studio, I would come in and I would give a talk, or I'd bring a speaker to the show, and then talk about Islamic ideologies, Islamic fiqh, Sharia, Sharia law talks. But today it's going to be a little different. I'm not going to just give you guys a mental health talk today. What I'm doing a little very much differently is that today I am here at this beautiful institution which is known as the California Islamic University, and I am with none other than the director of the university, Sh Mustafa Umar, with us, and also he's the imam for Islamic Institute of Orange County here in Southern California. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce Sh Mustafa Umar, so if you can start with giving us a little bit information about yourself. And how did this journey start for you with this beautiful institute?
Sure. All right. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It was about 7.5 years ago, where I was finishing my studies in England, and during finals week, I was thinking, what am I going to do after I finish my my master's degree? And I've already been an imam in the past, so I wanted to do something different. So I started, preparing an online Islamic university to basically be able to get the message out to many different people. So I could teach on a more regular basis.
Okay.
And after about 6 months of launching that, the masjid down the street, Islamic Institute of Orange County, they reached out to me and they're like, we really would like to have you in some capacity, maybe as an imam or something like that.
Oh.
So, they brought me in and we started a school called College of Islamic Studies. We were running it out of the masjid for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then afterwards, it was growing so much, and it was very stable. So they said, hey, we need a separate building for you. So they purchased this building, and we renamed ourselves to California Islamic University.
It's an amazing name.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And it's been about, I think, 3.5 years now since we've been in this building, and we tried to give a little bit of a modern feel, as you can see.
It's very modern.
Yeah, contemporary. I'm into contemporary art, so.
And it catches the person's eyes too. When you come here, even here we're at would you call it a cafe study room?
Cafe study room, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's very beautifully done. I mean, the couches here, you've got little tables, you've got a chest.
Yes.
It's amazing. You can get free coffee, free Wi-Fi, I'm assuming, for the students.
Good speed too.
So now, just to ask a question. So just so I know too, because I didn't know. So you started working online before you started preaching. You're working at Islamic Institute of Orange County.
Yes, I was already the imam at King Fahd Mosque for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then I was an imam in Corona for about 3 years. So I left my position and I went to just go study and write some books and just kind of get some sabbatical going there.
Okay.
So at the same time, I was doing a master's degree kind of on the side, and then I had launched an online platform, which was actually called the Institute of Islam, which was like an online Islamic university.
Okay.
And that transitioned into a physical location. So my original plan was to have an online Islamic university.
Okay.
And then, a few people convinced me. One of them was Sheikh Akram Nadwi, a very famous scholar. He said, don't just do online. Find a group of students and make sure you establish that connection, that physical connection with them. And then this local mosque over here, they told me before I left the country for my studies, they said, when you come back, make sure you just come talk to us first before you sign up anywhere else. So they called me afterwards when I came back to the country, and they're like, remember you promised us? I'm like, okay.
So there's already a job offer there.
Yeah, so the job offer was there, and they kind of pulled me in.
Negotiations.
Yeah, basically what they told me was, which really caught my attention, was they're like, look, what would your ideal job description be? You don't want to be an imam, like a traditional imam, like you've been already for 4 years now. What would you want your job description to be? So I said, okay. I said, that's pretty tempting. I said, okay. I said, I really like to teach other people about Islam, and I like to teach non-Muslims about Islam too. So I said something like 75% being like a professor, teacher for the university, and then like 25%, reaching out to non-Muslims and speaking in different venues and giving them tours and things like that. I said, that's kind of what I'm looking for. They said, okay, done, here's the job description. 75%, 25%, and of course I automatically just keep on assuming more responsibilities wherever I go. So I'm basically doing imam duties, then I'm running the school, and I'm teaching at the school, and then I'm technically in charge of the dawah activities, the outreach activities in the masjid, and also in charge of the prison outreach program. So we have an educational program into prisons around the country as well.
Yeah. MashaAllah, you guys are doing amazing work. Just so our viewers also know and understand, especially when it comes to the prison outreach program, what is that like? Or I'm assuming you get a lot of letters.
Oh yeah.
Is there a lot of converts?
Oh yeah.
A lot of people converting.
So what's happening is our program, we changed it to, it's called Link Outside right now. Which basically means like it's the link for the Muslim prisoners to the outside world. So it's their link outside. So what happens is people are converting to Islam or reverting to Islam in prison without any effort from our side, because the few Muslims that are there, they're discovering Islam, and they're finding Islam is like a transformative process. It brings a transformation in their lives. They've read the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's specifically mostly African Americans and Latinos. They're all coming into Islam in the prison. It's the fastest growing religion in prison, right? So what's happening is they need resources, and usually what happens is that they send they'll look in the, back in the days, they'll look in the white pages or whatever, they'll look at their local mosque, they go to Yelp or something like that, on their internet, and they'll call up a local mosque, and most local mosques don't respond. Most Islamic organizations don't respond. So what happens is...
Can I ask a question, why is that? Are they not well equipped?
They're not well equipped, and they're not well organized. So usually what happens is most mosques, they don't have a full-time or even a part-time administrative assistant or secretary in the office, right? So their phone, their voicemail will fill up, and the volunteers who run the mosque, they're like, I'm already, cleaning the carpets of the mosque. I don't have time to respond to all these inquiries. So that's unfortunate, So they could be fixed, but that's just the reality of the situation.
Again, it's fortunate to have somebody, like yourself in our community, and not just that, but an institution like IIOC, that has that, all these facilities, resources, programs for the community. Unfortunately, like you said, I've been, you've been to so many mosques all around the world. I've been to majority of mosques all around, as well. And I see the difference between, how much support a community gets and how much support a community does not get. And what a big difference it can make.
It makes a huge, resources are there, and then it's also the allocation of resources. So some communities have a massive allocation of resources, but for them they put it all into the building. So they're going to make the minaret look shinier, they're going to make the dome nicer, they're going to make a little garden and all that, but they still don't have a secretary to answer the phones. Right? So they could have invested that money in something else, but they didn't. They focused on what the parking lot's going to look like, they focused on buying more property or buying more land, but yet the services are not there. So one is resources, which some places they do not have the resources that we have, but it's also about the correct allocation of resources. That's really important.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. That's actually very good to know as well for myself. And also one of the main important things is that first I want to thank you very much for taking your time. I know your time is very busy to doing this interview with me. So as we know, Ramadan is around the corner. It's coming up. Even last week and this past Sunday, my wife and I, went out, and she asked me, we need grocery for the house. So I know there's a lot of folks and a lot of people in the community going out to prepare themselves, physically, psychologically, emotionally, to try to get themselves invested into this holy, beautiful month of Ramadan. Just for the viewers and for those that are the new, our new generation that are coming up, and for those that are non-Muslims, kind of talk about what is Ramadan actually, and what is the purpose of fasting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, well, what is Ramadan, first of all, right? So, Ramadan it's a month in the Islamic lunar calendar. So in the Islamic calendar, there's a separate calendar with 12 months, and it goes on the lunar cycle. So there's 12 months. Each month is like 29 or 30 days. So it's one of those months. And the month itself of Ramadan, it's been designated as being special by God because it was the month in which the Quran was revealed. The Quran is that guidebook for Muslims. It's a guidebook, well, Muslims believe it's a guidebook for humanity, right? So the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan. So because of that, it's like commemoration of the importance of that event. The Quran is our guidebook. We need that to learn we're supposed to live our lives. What are we supposed to do? What are we not supposed to do? Like this is like the most significant event for human beings who are living today because they need this guidance. So it's kind of like a commemoration of that. So people commemorate events like people commemorate, the 4th of July, American independence. They commemorate Cinco de Mayo and all of that. So that's what Ramadan is. Ramadan is commemorating the revelation of the Quran. Now, how do we commemorate that? What do we do? We're told to fast. Now, what fasting at its most basic, is that you refrain from food, drink, and intercourse during the day. So during the day, meaning from dawn to sunset. You don't eat, drink, you don't have intercourse. These three things. Now, if you kind of rationalize that, you try to understand what is the wisdom behind that, it's not too difficult to understand. So in the Quran, it actually tells us why we're fasting. It says fasting is prescribed for you the way it was prescribed for the people in the past. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. It's Arabic, which basically means so that you might become conscious of God. So that you might become more mindful of God. So somehow there's a connection between refraining from these three things during the day and being more conscious about the fact that God is there, God is watching you, you become aware of your purpose in life, what you're supposed to be doing, why you're doing it, all of these things. So how does it work? If you understand it from a psychological perspective, it's your field, right? You got food, drink, intercourse, like these, the appetite, the physical appetite, and the sexual appetite. These are like the strongest desires that human beings have in them, right? And if you're able to control those desires and build a sense of self-control through a regimen, through a routine, through a 1-month procedure, you can actually control the other desires that you have in life. So it's kind of like this. We're not even going to drink water in Ramadan in the daytime. So you're thirsty, it's summer, it's 4 p.m., 4 hours left to go till you break your fast, and you're like resisting. You're like, you know what? I want this water. My body's just craving it, but I'm gonna delay. I'm gonna delay my gratification for another 4 hours or so. So throughout the rest of the year, you're not supposed to drink alcohol as Muslims. You're not supposed to cheat other people. You're not supposed to lie. You're not supposed to gossip. But there's always that desire to like, I can make a few extra bucks here. I feel like saying something about someone else. But then you realize, you know what? I was able to control my thirst for water, which is even more of a fundamental need. If I could do that, if I could resist that, I could delay my gratification until later, I can actually resist these other temptations that I'm not supposed to be engaging in anyways. And that's kind of the logic behind fasting.
Very good. And then now the other question is just for our viewers so they know, is fasting only permissible for Muslims?
Yeah, so I mean it's prescribed for Muslims primarily, but there are a lot of non-Muslims who try to fast. And they're like, you know what, hey, I want to check this out. Because you tell your friend, you tell John, you tell Mary, you're like, hey, by the way, why aren't you eating? So, well, I'm fasting. What is that? And when you explain it to them, they're like, man, that looks really tough. And then you tell them, like, you know what, well, it's tough, but it's actually very good for you. It's psychologically good for you, it's spiritually good for you, and it's actually physically good for you as well. So like you should check it out sometime.
So if you were to say, kind of going back into it, psychologically, physically, as you did mention, a couple of key components of it, can you give us a little bit more of how it's beneficial for those that have a harder time or a challenging time? How can they start the process of fasting?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I recommend, first of all, it's you got to make sure your diet is good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to make sure you're eating the right thing. So in the morning, one of the things we do is we wake up very early morning, and we have a pre-dawn meal. So having a good pre-dawn meal is really important. You want to make sure you hydrate your body. You want to make sure you eat the right foods. You know, don't drink a bunch of coffee. Don't drink any soda. People do that.
It's going to be very hard, especially with folks living in Southern California, but in America. Everybody drinks coffee.
We're sitting in a cafe right
that's
now.
That's their tea every day. Their chai.
It is. But you know, in Ramadan, you try and adjust. You can drink coffee. I mean, you're allowed to drink coffee if you want, but you want to make sure you don't dehydrate yourself. So coffee's a diuretic. It will dehydrate you.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to do it in the morning. You know, if you want to do it after you break your fast, you can do that and then rehydrate yourself. So, you know, that's something that's recommended. You want to make sure you don't drink soda, you know, in the more early morning especially, right?
With sugar craving.
The sugar craving, and then
also,
it's just not good for you. You know, having these really heavy breakfasts which are full of oily foods and all that, you want to get some kind of, you know, good slow release carbohydrates, something that's going to give you energy throughout the day.
Okay.
Not something that's going to peak your energy, then you get all tired and you can't function.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really important. You know, so you have a good meal in the morning. Then you get into the right mindset in the daytime. So one of the things is, you know, you're going to be skipping lunch at work. You may want to actually take a nap. So if you need to, like, take a siesta, a little midday nap, you do that, kind of re-energizes you. If you ever need to take a bath to just cool down or something like that, you do that. The goal is to keep working, is to keep functioning the way you function. You know, basketball players like Hakeem Olajuwon and you know, soccer players, they keep training.
Yeah,
they play their games and they're fasting, right? So if they're able to do that, you know, people with like a desk job like you and me,
why can't we do this?
Yeah, we can do it too. You know, our bodies are able to handle it, but it's about mind over matter. It's psychological, right? So we need to really prepare our minds for this. You know, so I would say that that's a very important component. And then when you break your fast after sunset, you got to make sure you're eating the right food as well. You want to make sure you don't overeat. It's a common problem that people, they go and they overeat, they get indigestion, it's very hard for them.
I have a lot of stories during Isha prayers.
Isha prayers.
You have folks that come in and they overeat. And there's a lot of disturbances. You
feel it, you know, and it's there's certain smells
there's a lot of smell.
There's a lot of movement and motion because they're suffering inside.
And sound too.
Sound.
If you're suffering, do you want to break your fast?
They're in pain.
You want to break your
prayers
to help them out?
You know, you feel bad.
Joking or not?
Yeah.
That has happened. That actually has happened.
Yeah.
And what would you say to those that actually do excessively eat, or they're eating food that are very, like, maybe oily, when they come in? And I think one of the things is that when I do have this, when we have this program, you know, for our viewers, is that I'm going to touch a lot of bases on, you know, the importance of food as well, and talk about, you know, what food maybe are safer food for family, you know, for folks to eat while they're fasting, because again, the stomach is very disturbed while people are praying. Not even just the individual itself that has consumed the food, but also people that are around them. They get very, I mean, it's not a place where you come in and then it's you know, you're making loud noises, you're burping, constant burp, constant smell, and it's like that. You're focused, the individual's focused, and prayers is just like, what do I do?
You disturb yourself and you disturb other people, you know, and that becomes a challenge. And so we got to be very careful about that. So in terms, and also you're not supposed to make up that lunch that you skipped, right? That's the thing. People are like making qada, like they miss prayers, they're trying to make it up, you know. So they're like going extra. They're like, I missed lunch, so I got to have 2 meals now. No, in fact, you actually eat less than you would normally eat, you know. And anyone who's experienced it, they know. They're like, you know what? You feel like you can eat so much, but you're actually less than your normal minute, you know, because you just can't do it. So you got to have that self-control. You had the self-control in the entire day. You got to have the self-control when you break too. Your self-control doesn't end. You know, it continues.
And so now to my other question is, so do you lose weight during Ramadan? And I'm assuming you do, because when you're not eating, your digestive system shrinks.
So what ends up happening is your metabolism also slows down, right? But because it slows down, if you have enough reduced caloric intake, you will be losing weight. But if you eat that make-up meal of lunch and you do the lunch and dinner thing and you eat the wrong types of food, there are people who can actually end up gaining weight when they're not supposed to be gaining weight, you know. So you probably would maintain a normal weight if you eat kind of healthy, you do a little exercise, But potentially you could either gain some weight if you eat wrong, or you could lose weight as well if you just kind of eat normal and because of the caloric intake is less. You could lose weight, and maybe you should lose weight. Maybe it's a time and an opportunity to lose some of that extra pounds that you didn't need, So, which is good, and I think a lot of people that's another reason why a lot of non-Muslims that I know, they actually try that out because they're looking to lose a little bit of weight. They're looking to feel better. They're looking to purify a little bit. So these things happen, and it's a purification process. And people realize that even on a physical level, intermittent fasting is like a new trend.
It is a new trend. It's a new way of life for folks.
It's a new way of life. Yeah.
They've done it for over the years. I know a couple of athletes that I follow, and they use intermittent fasting, and they say, you know what, it's one of the best daily regimens that they have created for themselves. High energy, high focus, and it has worked really well for their bodies. So now let's kind of change our, not to change too much, but kind of want to talk to you about what does a typical day look like, for a person during Ramadan, and how does that look like?
Good question.
Or for yourself.
Yeah, sure. You wake up in the morning about, let's say, maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock. Wake up about, half an hour to 45 minutes before fasting starts. Okay? Perform your ablution, your wudu, your washing before prayer.
Okay.
Perform at least 2 units of prayer. Just real quick, something very quick, because you woke up in the morning. And, maybe perform your witr prayer. It's like another 3 units or so. And then you start to have your little meal. So wake up, wife, husband, whoever it is preparing some food. Kids are there. If they're awake, if they're old enough to get up. My kids are very young, so they're going to be sleeping. They're all right, Okay. So, but me and my wife will, for example, we'll go in the kitchen. They'll prepare something, and we'll have a little meal together. So it's a little bit time together. It's a breakfast together. We eat that meal. As soon as that meal's done, I'll jump in the car and I'll drive to the mosque. Get to the mosque, we're going to pray Fajr prayer, early morning prayer inside the mosque. After that's done, there'll be like a little short talk and reminder. And then afterwards, probably most people, they'll stay. I'll usually stay too, or I'll go in my office and we'll read Quran. Because it's the month of Quran, we try to read more Quran, more than we normally would do. So usually when I'm driving there, I'll review my Quran that I have memorized. And then the Quran that I don't have memorized, that's what I'm going to read in my office, or I'm going to read inside the mosque. Throughout the day then, go to work like normal. If I get really tired in the daytime, I'll take a little noontime nap, siesta or something like that. Half an hour, maybe 1 hour, something like that, which is more than sufficient. And then near the end, probably last few hours, starts getting a little tough. So, it happens to everyone. It happens to everyone. So I start to, thinking of ways to kind of, focus on something that's easy, that's light, but it's enough to kind of distract me away from my hunger. So either I'll, have an appointment with some people, I'll just meet with some friends, or if I have enough focus, I'll try and read some more Quran or read some books or something like that. Or I'll just, listen to like a lecture or something like that. Something that's interesting, distract me. Worst case scenario, watch a cooking show. Really? I know a lot of people do that. So I'll just be like, what?
It does help though.
It helps.
It
anything that's clean, healthy entertainment, so we're gonna distract you away from that. I'll do that. So something that's been on my some documentary I haven't watched in a while, I'll just turn that on.
And I think you're preparing yourself for food time too.
Exactly.
So why not?
Yeah, why not? And then you break your fast as soon as sunset comes in. And what I'll do is, when we break our fast, I'll break with some dates.
Okay.
Right. So keep some dates with me. If I'm driving somewhere, I'll keep it in the car. Keep some water with me. I'll make sure to eat dates. Usually break with 3 dates, which is recommended in Islam. And then make sure to drink a lot of water. So I make sure to drink a lot of water before I start eating. Because what's going to happen is then you fill your stomach with food and you don't have space for water, but you need that water to rehydrate, right?
So I wanted to just touch bases on it since you came to dates. I know a lot of people don't understand the importance of why we eat dates. And why is that? Why do we break our fast with eating dates? And what about even the number 3?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he taught us to break with dates. He didn't explain the details and everything, but dates were something that were known in that society. And he specifically said, break your fast with dates. Right? So we do that because he told us to, But now that we have a better understanding, I mean, they had an understanding too that, this is what people used to live off of dates, right? Yeah. They could travel to the desert, their camels would eat dates, they would eat dates, they could go through the whole desert, so it worked really well. Yeah. Now the studies show actually the dates are actually very beneficial for you. Specifically, they help you to rehydrate your body. They give you the energy that you need, but it give you the sugar that you need, but it's more natural sugar. So it doesn't just give you that spike of energy. It gives you that energy, but it's also that continuous energy that you can need for a while. So it's very, very healthy. The odd number is because the Prophet actually taught us to do things in odd numbers. Because God is one, so there's an emphasis on that. So either eat 1 date or 3 dates or 5 dates. Same thing when you're drinking water. You drink with 1 sip, 3 sips, 5 sips, 7 sips. You drink in odd numbers. Okay. Right? So that's the reason. So you break with dates. Drink a lot of water, make sure you drink enough water, then usually I'll go and pray my prayer right after that. And then I'll continue to eat. So I make sure I get all the water in that I need before I start eating, because I know myself, I know the weakness, and everyone's got weaknesses, And if they see the food and they start eating the food, they're just going to neglect the water, like the food tastes better. Yeah. And then you're not going to drink enough water. So I really encourage people to hydrate themselves.
To hydrate themselves as much as they can. Just 2 more questions about Ramadan,
sure.
And then I just have a couple of more questions that I would want to get with, talk about, even behavioral health wise.
Sure.
But before that, now I want to come to the point of what makes mosques much more crowded during the day of Ramadan.
Good point. So in Ramadan, it's an emphasis on the Quran.
Yeah.
So more people are going to come to the mosque, and also they're going to come to the mosque because this is like once out of the year. And it said that there's less temptations for people in Ramadan, which basically means the Prophet said like Satan is tied down, tied down in the sense that there's less whisperings coming to you and all of that stuff. When people become more spiritual, there's less there's more help from God.
Okay.
For you to be able to resist those temptations, right? So people become more pious, they become more connected to God, they become more in tune with their Islamic values and Islamic practice. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why they go to the mosque more. Another reason is there's something called Taraweeh prayer. Taraweeh prayer in the evening is basically like an extra hour or 2 of prayer.
Yeah.
Right? So usually 5 prayers in the day, they're just 5 minutes each. They don't take a very long time.
Taraweeh?
Taraweeh
is an exercise.
Is an exercise. Taraweeh is a training routine.
It's a training routine. Now for Muslims, I look at it as CrossFit.
Exactly. It is the CrossFit for Muslims, right? It's the P90X, It's the T25 or whatever you want to exercise routine you want to call it, That's exactly what it is. So you go in there and you do 1 hour to 2 hours depending on which imam is leading the prayer, right? Some of them you go like, 2.5 hours, and you go there and you do these extra prayers, and what you're doing is they're going to try to recite as much of the Quran as they possibly can. And people enjoy attending that. They like attending that one because it's extra prayer, it's extra worship. And there's also the social environment where people are going there with their families, you get to see people you haven't seen in such a long time, and you have the energy for it, surprisingly, You would think that, when you're fasting, you're going to be able to do less. But in Ramadan, you could actually do more because you got the help from God.
Alhamdulillah, it's a beautiful month again. That month I see a lot of folks coming to the mosque, which is a good thing. It's a remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the purpose of our deen and faith as well. Now my last question to you about Ramadan is that this is something personal that I want to ask yourself about is why is Ramadan so special and what is so special to you?
I mean, Ramadan is that time where I think God helps you. Allah helps me to refocus my life.
Okay.
And there's, like I said, there's less temptations, and the community is there. That community environment just comes out to a totally different degree, and you see all the people who are kind of like hiding in their shells somewhere. You're like, I've never seen these people. They all start to come out, and you see their behavior just changes in Ramadan. There's like this Ramadan spirit that everyone notices, and I think that's one of the biggest transforming things for me is that you feel the community feel. You do extra acts of worship. You feel like you got extra energy, even though you're worshiping and fasting throughout the entire day. So for that, it's like imagine you go into a gym, you go into CrossFit or something, and somehow they pumped you with like steroids or something like that, and you could just do more than you've ever done before. And all the people who showed up there, these are like the most serious people of all. They all became super serious.
Super serious, right?
You know, and that is like, you don't get that throughout the rest of the year.
You know what? This is something. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's something that I hear from folks, especially with our community, especially our elderly as well. You know, who have some form of sickness, back pains, who have headaches, who can't stand for too long. Ramadan, and when they go to Hajj or Umrah, they say once we go there, all the pain is gone.
Exactly.
I kid you not, when I went to Umrah, and I saw you there too at the hotel there in Mecca. So when we went, it was my wife, my parents. So my mom, she does have a lower back problem, so she doesn't walk long distance. She was hesitant in going and touching the rock, and she was making tawaf, and she did more Umrah than I did. And I was like, my feet were hurting. I'm like, how are you doing this? And she was driven. She was driven, and again, it comes back to mentality.
It's a
mentality thing. So it's mentally how and spiritually how strong your drive is.
It's that grit that just comes in.
So again, I won't take too much of your time. I know you have a lot of folks coming in, and I saw a couple of folks coming in, and you have made some time for them as well. So now coming back to just the idea of mental health. This is something that I do with the community. I talk and I discuss regarding matters that are very prominent in our own community, where our community tells us, or actually they talk to us and they say that, no one has mental health. And then the reason why you have mental health is because you have lack of faith. You have mental health because you're crazy. So, and then there's also a belief that there's no such thing as mental health. What is your thought on that?
No, I mean, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said that Allah has created every disease. He's created a disease with the cure, except with one illness, and that is like old age. I mean, people are going to die, right? But the idea of illness as a whole, we understand that as Muslims. This is a test from God that Allah gives to different people. The Prophet, peace be upon him, experienced that in his lifetime. There were certain people who had mental illnesses, and he identified this person has a certain type of challenge that they're going through. So the idea that mental illness doesn't exist, or this idea of mental health doesn't exist, it's hard to really make that claim, right? So I think we need to recognize that certain people are tested in different ways. People are tested with physical illnesses. People are tested with, wealth sometimes. People are tested with poverty sometimes. There's different type of tests that God has put out there. And mental illness is one of those tests. And just needs to be clearly defined. I think a lot of people don't understand what mental illness means. And that's one of the challenges,
that's
right?
Also the other challenge.
That's a huge challenge, And there's a difference between, psychosis and, just people struggling with
just general depression.
Just general depression.
People having bipolar. Anxiety.
Exactly, anxiety. These are struggles, and these are struggles that there's a lot of ways to work on that. There's a lot of ways to kind of address that as well. But this is not just like, this doesn't mean someone is just like absolutely crazy and they cannot function and things like that. So it's important for us to recognize the research that exists. It's also important for us to understand that research within the correct Islamic paradigm and Islamic context.
And I know you have been an advocate when it comes to mental health. You have given talks. I know not too long ago we did we had a Friday night at IIOC. We talked about suicide prevention.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, it was a good crowd, very engaging, and I actually wanted to share with you, what the surveys had talked about was that they wanted more time. They had so much that they wanted to share. It was something that a lot of family members are facing. A lot of community members are facing personal challenges. I know myself. I've had a cousin who actually ended up shooting himself back home in Afghanistan because of some hardship that he had with his own family. So for that, just to wrap it up, I know I don't want to take more of your time. Just wanted to ask you, what are some last thoughts, or anything that you want to discuss or tell our audience or viewers during the month of Ramadan, or just in general, like a takeaway?
Yeah, takeaway, I would say just, take your Ramadan very seriously.
Okay.
This is an opportunity to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. And a lot of people, they're like, I have New Year's resolutions, I'm going to change it a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I would say really Ramadan, this is now or never.
Mm-hmm.
I'm either going to change myself for the better, I'm going to get closer to God, I'm going to improve my habits, I'm going to get rid of some of my bad habits. This is the opportunity, this is the chance, this is the time to change. Because when God is helping you, and He's giving you a routine, and He's giving you a community that's going to be there for you, this is your chance. Don't delay, make the intention, and renew your intention every single day.
That's great. Thank you so much again. Thank you so much for your time. I cannot thank you enough. Inshallah, I can, if it's God's will, I'll come back and try to bug you more regarding these matters. Again, I know our viewers really love you and they enjoy watching you, especially here locally, nationally, and internationally. So for that, thank you so much for spreading the word of Islam all around in the community. So that is it, brothers and sisters. Thank you for staying tuned in our show. Till next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.